Just one more thing, we will have fire practice this afternoon. You've got specials that you're working on or bringing, and we'll work on them too. We've got some songs that we're ready to look over and change some things, but I'll do just speak to the choir about that. I'm ready to do it. You ready to do it?
Eric, come on down.
Children's Church.
I've asked Aaron, the church purchased a AED a couple of months ago, and we got it in, got it hooked up, and I've asked Aaron to, if you would, to come down and just demonstrate this thing. For anybody that don't know, this is an automatic defibrillator device. And we did, it may sound like overkill, but you know, we bought it with the hope and desire that we never have to take it out of the box. But in any gathering of people, if we need it, we got it. So I'll let him. Sure you want to.
Yeah. This is about the easiest AED we'll ever have to operate. There's no buttons on it. Nothing you really have to do except open this front screw, yellow tab here on top, open it, that turns it on. You can see everything light up.
Stay calm. Follow these voice instructions.
Tells you
Make sure
everything to
911
do.
is called now. Begin by exposing patient's bare chest and torso. Remove or cut clothing if needed.
The pads are already connected. And these will work for an adult all the way down to a newborn. We don't have pediatric pads, so we just use adult for everybody. It's got pictures on here where to put the pads. We don't have to match a shock button or anything, so we just follow the prompts that it says to stay clear, using it obviously hands off, and it'll shock automatically. So whenever it's time to shut it back off, just close it back down. But this is covered for 4 or 5 years, I think. Maintenance with the program we got it through and all. So. And for right now, we're keeping it back in Will's office, but eventually we're going to get the cabinet and put it back in the back. Can't get no more simple than that.
This is in case somebody was to go into cardiac arrest and we start CPR on before the ambulance gets here. I know we got several medics here and a lot of us work in rescue and EMS, but you know, I wanted him to go over this because it may be one of us that goes down. you know, and y'all may be doing CPR on us. And I would prefer if y'all doing CPR on me, that, you know where that thing's at and know how to use it. You know, so we're keeping it right now. It's in my office, in the desk drawer, on the left-hand side, the bottom drawer, the big drawer. That's where it's gonna stay until we get a cabinet. When we get a cabinet, it'll go up back here somewhere, and we'll let everybody know. If somebody was to go in cardiac arrest, and somebody else go grab this, somebody start CPR, and, yeah, somebody dial 911, you know, get the cavalry coming. So, it's real simple to use. You can disregard the first statement where it says, stay calm. I've never seen the individual stay calm yet. You know, that's outside of EMS or something, and I have seen a few of them lose their cool. But just follow the directions and it'll walk you all the way through it. But we just felt like, you know, in today's world, I know we got one down here in Central and the EMS crew, but if we got an EMS crew coming out of Easley or coming out of Liberty, this was a $500 investment, but, you know, say, well, do we really need it? What if it's you that's laying on the floor and this thing can save your life? Or what if it's, you know, somebody we care deeply about, that $500 ain't a drop in the bucket. You know, Amen. Amen. In a couple of weeks, he's gonna go take his instructor, CPR instructor. So as soon as he gets his instructor card, we'll have a in-house CPR class for everybody. Get you up to date on all that.
Amen.
I'd rather have it and pray to God we never, ever use it than the one chance we need it, not have it. So,
We'll do the training here if we're out there somewhere.
yeah, you don't never know. We were at Cracker Barrel one day eating and the guy went down. Fortunately, he wasn't having a heart attack, but everybody thought he was. His sugar dropped and, you know, he came around before the ambulance crew even got there. So, but, you know, you don't never know. You may be at a football game, you may be at Walmart, you know, somebody go down. So. We're in the life-saving business at church, amen?
Hey, absolutely.
The soul-saving business. It may be a person's soul, it may be God give you the opportunity to save somebody's life, to save their soul. You can't never tell. But we do have it, and to be honest with you, I feel better about it. And there's also a first aid bag, which is just a large CPR, large first aid bag in my office also. If somebody was to fall and get cut or need something, we got it in the bag. Amen?
Amen.
Do we need anything for that bag?
Yes, yes.
Give us a list, and then maybe we can all volunteer to bring a bag, whatever we might need.
That would be great. I can make a list right now. We need some just generic Band-Aids
We'll
and aspirin.
there you go. One of us should write it down this afternoon.
Well, if you have your Bibles, turn to Matthew chapter 7. Matthew chapter 7. I really feel like something else needs to be done. But I don't have any idea what it is. Anybody else got an idea what it is? I don't mean to be awkward, I just feel like something else needs to be done. Well?
No fish story.
No fish. No fish stories. No fish stories. This is the end of the Sermon on the Mount. The end of the sermon portion of Sermon on the Mount. And in this whole sermon, Christ has gave us everything we need to be an effective Christian. He told us what kind of head to have. what kind of heart to have, what kind of outreach to have, what kind of actions we ought to take in order to be a Christian. And he finishes it with a warning. In verse 15 of chapter 7, he says, "Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves." And it's not odd that he ought to finish it this way, because in the previous chapter, 2 chapters, he gives us everything that we need in order to be effective. And one of the things that will derail an effective Christian, derail an effective church, derail an effective community, is wolves in sheep clothing. I've seen more Christians be derailed by looking at others or the bad effects of others than any other thing. Because the devil's going to use several things to defeat us and destroy us. The devil's going to use our mind to defeat us. The devil's going to use the people we care about the most to defeat us. And if those things don't work, then the devil's going to, a lot of times, will slip somebody in that outwardly looks like one of us. They outwardly act like one of us, but inwardly they're wolves. You've seen it, I've seen it, where everything's going good and churches start growing, and then all of a sudden the wolf comes in. And then everything goes to turmoil. What is that noise?
Man.
Okay, I just heard something running.
The other one don't make that noise.
The other one's on.
And in so doing, that spirit gets in and destroys things. That spirit comes in and starts working, and that spirit of division, that whatever that evil fruit, that wicked fruit starts growing. And what happens, it starts infecting one another. It's like the flu. The flu's going around. One person gets the flu, and all of a sudden, those closest to them, what happens?
Get the flu.
They get the flu also. Why? Because they were close to the bad germ. They were infected because they were the closest. In families, what happens? One person gets sick, it spreads through the whole family. Why? You let a kid get sick, it'll go through the whole family. The same thing, and this is what Christ is trying to tell us here. He tells us, he said, "Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves." He tells us, first of all, to beware of them, and that's a statement that holds a lot of weight in the fact that there are some things. He starts out this saying, "By judge not." This is a whole different ballgame than judging one another. It's not a contradiction where he says, "Judge not, that you be not judged," and then turn around and says, "Look at their fruit." And I've heard people say, "Well, we're not supposed to judge, but we can be fruit inspectors." That's never made a lot of sense to me, because I always looked at it as two of the same thing. But that's exactly what Christ is telling us to do. And the difference is not whether, not necessarily like a fruit inspector. The difference is, I put it as a book inspector. If I'm judging somebody, or it's like looking at a book. You've heard the old saying, don't judge a book by its cover. What is this? Huh? It's a book, but it's a journal. I mean, that's what that is. It's a journal. You look at it and you see the pretty cover, and you see the stickers that Ray's put on there, or Jesse's put on there, and you assume what it is by its cover. Well, the Bible tells us, "Judge not, that you be not judged." When I look at somebody and I assume what's on the inside, I'm judging them. You follow me? If I pick this up and this is a person, and I look at the exterior, and I see what's on the outside, and I make a judgment, if I make a decision based on what's on the outside, I have in effect judged them. If I look at their condition, and their condition is not up to par with mine, then I have judged them to be a lower state than me. Financially, economically, emotionally, whatever it is. If I look at them and they're way above me, and my reaction is based on my assumption that, hey, this guy lives in a big house, drives a fine car, got plenty of money, then my actions are going to reflect my judgments. I have in effect judged this person right or wrong, good or bad. That's judging. God tells us not to do that. What he's talking here is to beware of wolves in sheep's clothing. Beware of false teachers. Beware of somebody that would pervert the gospel. Beware of somebody that would try to hurt the family, hurt the church, hurt our home, hurt our life, hurt our relationship with Christ. When he tells us that, he's not telling us don't judge. He's saying take time to open the book and find out what's in it. That's judging the fruit. That's looking at the fruit. If I ignore the outside, I'm not making a judgment. But when I open it up and I look at what the pages contain, then I'm in effect looking at the fruit of that person. And that's what he tells us to do. You're not judging somebody if you look at what's on the inside. You're not judging them at all. You're bearing witness to the fruit that they're bearing. And every one of us need to get into the practice of that, because every one of us have faced or will face wolves in sheep's clothing. What is the effect of this? Why does Christ tell us to do this? He's told us everything to do right. He's told us that the meek shall inherit the earth. He's told us to be pure in spirit. He's told us how to treat each other. He's told us to have compassion on them. He's told us to do the will of the Father. He's told us all these things, and the one thing that will derail us quicker than anybody is if we let a wolf come in. Because the wolf comes in and destroys and devours. And this is what he's telling us to do, is to beware of these people. Beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing. He said, you shall know them by the fruit, by their fruit. What effect does that have on us? Every one of us have seen it. Every one of us experienced it to some degree, or have a family member that's experienced it. They get in church, they start living for God, they go into a good church, they start enjoying the things, but somebody hurts them. Somebody misleads them. Somebody does them wrong. That wolf slips in, and that wolf's attacks where it matters most. And the damage is unrepairable. You ever seen anybody or anything after a coyote's got a hold of them? You know the difference in a coyote attack and a dog attack? Coyote attack, there's nothing left. A coyote attacks a calf on the farm, there's nothing left. You can tell a coyote attack, or you can tell a dog attack. A dog will tear up and leave, take off. A coyote, there's nothing left. And that's the way a wolf's described. When that person comes in, they're not there just to cause havoc. They're there to destroy. And I've seen it in churches, I've seen it in ministry, and there's people out there working under this assumption every day of our life. They're going to church. They're fellowshipping. They're leading ministries. They're pastoring churches. But on the inside, they're wicked people. And they're cold-hearted. And their mindset is, their fruit is wicked. I want you to look at what it says here. He said, beware of false prophets He said, you shall know them by their fruit. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs or thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit. He tells us to look at each other and see what kind of fruit they're bearing. How do you tell if somebody's good or not? Think about it. This is interaction. Not a whole lot of us here. This is interaction. How can you look at another Christian and deem that person good or not? And I'm not talking about habits. I'm not talking about, we all make mistakes. We all make failures. We all come short and sin. We all do those things. If I look at any of you long enough, or any of you look at me, you're going to see sin of one degree or another. You're going to see something that you're not happy with. You're going to see something that I disappoint you in. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a matter of the heart. How can you look at somebody and tell whether they're a wolf or not?
Their actions.
Where their passions lie.
Where their passions lie. Look at their actions. But there's one key, the root. If you want to find whether a person is true or not, whether a person, the greatest advice somebody ever gave me concerning this subject is, if you want to see whether a man or a ministry is for God or for self or wicked, you look at the root. You get down to the root, and that will tell whether that person's evil or good. Because the root always exposes it. You can have a beautiful tree. You can have the right actions. A person can be living the right actions. But you look at the root, and the root will tell all tales. Because at the root lies the heart. And if the heart's wicked, then the effects will eventually come forth, and the fruit will fall off. You look at a minister. What's at the root of it? We were talking in Bible school one night, and this is as much teaching as it is preaching. We were talking in Bible school one night, and the man that was teaching the class, somebody asked him about this verse and about different ministries, the ones you see on TV. Because on down here, it goes on, and it says, every tree that bringeth forth not good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them. Not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils? And in thy name have done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. That's a fearful thing. In the day of judgment, there's going to be many people that look at the Lord and say, Lord, haven't we done this? Lord, didn't I go to church every Sunday? Didn't I teach Sunday school? Didn't I preach the gospel? Didn't I raise the sick? Didn't I heal the sick? Didn't I do? I fed the poor. I did this. I did that. And the Lord's going to look at him and say, who are you? Depart from me. I never knew you. And the reason he's going to say this is the root. The reason he's going to say this at the day of judgment, there's a lot of people who have gotten into church and gotten into life and never gotten into Christ. There's a lot of people that start out right. They come to church and they like it, and they like the fellowship, they make friends, and they start coming to church and they live their life as Christians, but they're not. And then there's a lot of people just like I was. Mama took them to church. Every time a door was open, they came to church. We make a joke, we had a drug problem. Every Sunday morning, Mama drug us to church. You know? But we got in church at a young age, or born into church, and we always lived that way, but there never was a conversion in our heart. One of the dangers is, especially for little ones, and that's why it has to be taught, that's why it has to be preached. Kinsley, she's been in church, her mama brought her before she was born. This girl, she will grow up in church. Hopefully she'll stay in church her entire life. And hopefully she won't know a lot of the things of this world that people who got in church at an older age know. Hopefully she will always be involved in Sunday school and singing in the choir and doing the church life. But if there's not a specific time that she gives her soul to Jesus Christ, she'll die and go to hell from a church pew.
That's right.
My girls were missionaries' kids. They were missionaries. You know, they traveled all over the country. But they had to be a day that they came to know Christ as their Savior. Being a missionary's kid was not going to help them get to heaven. You know how many missionaries' kids are going to die and go to hell? Thinking they're perfect, thinking they're right. How many pastors' kids are going to die and go to hell? Because they came to church every day of their life. It's not just a matter of tearing up a church. It's a matter of eternity. And there's people all over this world that comes to church faithful. And they come to church day in and day out. And they're going to die and go to hell, and they're going to stand before God and say, God, what's wrong? And God's going to say, I never knew you. The danger of that is when you get to the root of something and there's a wolf involved, the wolf can't help but act like a wolf. We talked about it during Sunday school. We talked about it after Sunday school. The church has focused so much on getting the world to look like us and act like us that we've got a lot of people in church who they look like us, they act like us, but they're not us. They're not us in the fact that they've turned over a new leaf, but they've never been forgiven of their sins. They've never asked Jesus Christ to come into their heart and save them. I was talking to Travis this week. He said, I think it was a 74-year-old man, told him in the church there, a guy used to race with us down in Lawrence and different areas, different racetracks. I knew this man back in the 70s and early 80s. Used to drive a race car at the dirt track. I've seen him on the track. I got a picture of him on my phone on the dirt track. He's 70-something years old now. He told Travis, he said, I need to talk to you. So Travis met with him Monday, I think it was, and he said Monday morning, and he met with him. The guy came into his office. Travis said, what's wrong? He said, well, he said, the Lord's been bothering me for a few weeks. And he said, you got to talking about your testimony. He said, you got to telling us how you went to church, and then when you were older, God saved you. He said, I've been to church all my life. He said, I've lived as a Christian all my life. I've been a member of this church for 30 years. He said, but I can't tell you that I've ever been saved. He said, I've lived a life for my lifetime. He's 70-something years old. His wife's in a nursing home. And he said, I don't have that testimony. And Travis said, well, we can take care of that. It's obvious that the Lord's dealing with you. He said the man was in tears. And he said, but I can pray with you, but I can't pray for you. And he said, I got this. And said he got down on his knees and asked the Lord to save him.
Amen.
And Travis told him, he said, well, come Sunday morning, you're going to have to do something that I can't do for you. He said, I got no problem with that now. He's fixing to baptize him in a couple of weeks. 74 years old. What would have happened if he'd have died last year? Everybody they knew, everybody in the church would have came to his funeral and said, oh, this was a great person. Oh, he served God all his life. He's been a member here for 30 years. He's been on the deacon board in Sunday school. He's done all this great things. He's given us time. He's given us talent. He's given us money to the church. He's done all this stuff. You know where he would have been? He'd been in hell. And on the day of judgment, he looked at the Lord and said, Lord, I was a member of Columbia Baptist Church all my life. And Christ would have looked at him and said, depart from me, I don't know you. The danger of that is when the root of something is wrong, the ministry is too. And it goes beyond just an individual. When the root of something is wrong, then the ministry of it is too. And what I mean by that, if you look at something and you get down to the root of it, what lies at the root? And when you look at somebody, Christ told us to beware of these people because they are wolves. And it don't matter what the outward appearance is. What matters is the heart of the matter. When you look at a preacher, when you look at a person, when you look at a fellow Christian, you examine the root before you put your confidence in them. And I'm not saying be standoff. I'm not saying that goes against everything Christ has taught. But what I am saying is, before you let somebody win your confidence, you get down to the root of the matter and see what lies there.
Amen.
And what's at that? Somebody quote off a ministry.
Nothing but Jesus ministry.
Nothing but Jesus ministry. That's a ministry we're all involved in. Is that wrong or right? Huh?
The ministry thing?
Yeah, the ministry. How do you know it's right? Don't matter. How do you know it's right?
I know what his root is.
What's his root?
The word of God.
Okay, but go deeper than that.
His salvation.
Go deeper than that. Huh?
It's got to be saved.
He's got to be saved. He's got to love the Lord. You're digging down, and I'm playing the advocate because you may know him, and you may know him as a good guy, but do you know him? And I may know him, and you may ride with him, you may fellowship with him, but at the root of it, he may be wicked as the pits of hell. And that's possible for anybody. But you dig down far enough, it uncovers the truth. You dig down far enough, and I'm doing this to make a point. We like him because he's a nice fellow. We believe he's saved because of his outward testimony. That's his fruit. But you dig deeper and deeper and deeper. The Bible declares that the love of money is the root of all evil. And listen to what I'm saying. The Bible declares that the love of money is the root of all evil. There are certain judgments you can make that gets to the root of the matter. Now his ministry, you mentioned nothing but Jesus' ministry. Okay, you take his personality out of it because that's something that comes and goes. You can't make a decision based on that because every one of us have fallen for good personalities. Every one of us have put our confidence in people who we thought had wonderful personalities but turned out to be a snake in the grass. So you got to remove him as his personality from it. The fact that he's saved is between him and God. All we can judge is the outward appearance of that. So I have to, in effect, move that out of the way. But I'm talking about the ministry, nothing but Jesus' ministry. Okay, let's look at who he's benefited. Who benefits from nothing but Jesus' ministry?
The homeless.
The people on the street, the homeless. Do those homeless people have anything to offer Dan Barber? Nope, nothing. So he's not getting much kickback from the ministry. Okay, what about the self-promotion? Is it boosting his ego?
No.
Has anybody ever read it in the Greenville News? Do they have billboards going into Greenville, welcome Dan Barber and nothing but Jesus Ministries to the 100 Minor Street, appearing every Sunday, every Saturday? No. So you uncover all the outward appearance, and at the root of it, there's nothing there. There's no money. There's no self-glory. Is that a glorious ministry? Is there a big crowd cheering him on? Does he have a Facebook page with 10,000 likes? Are there people following him? Are there people coming to hear him speak other than the crowd that's there? No. There's no self-promotion. There's no money. As a matter of fact, he's losing money. He's put a lot of his own money in that ministry. So what's at the root of it? Huh? Love. Love's at the root of that ministry. Helping other people is at the root of that ministry. Having the desire to not give a handout to the homeless, but a hand up to the homeless, that's at the root of that ministry. And Saturday after Saturday after Saturday, the man that you like so much, and the man that all of us like so much, he is sacrificing himself, his time, his talent, his money, to provide a ministry to people who have nothing to offer him in return.
Amen.
So what's at the root of it? Love. A love of Christ, because that's the underlying reason he's doing it. There's nothing else he's getting out of it. A love of people, because he's loving a people that is in a large percentage unlovable. A lot of the people he works with are not going to love him back. They're there to get a free meal and a hot ticket or something. So he's doing it unselfishly and for a people that do not love him. A large part of it. There are some that love him, and there are some that make a tremendous difference. But at a whole, you look at the root of his ministry, it resembles the ministry of Christ, does it not?
Yes.
He went to a people that didn't want him. He's working with a group of people who have nothing to offer him in return. And he's giving it his all for their benefit and their benefit. You look at the root of it, that looks a whole bunch like Christ. Can we put our confidence in it? Yes. Name me another one. Our church. Let's tear it apart. Look at it. Are we benefiting from it? What I mean by this, you take the same standards for everybody. You take my personality out of it. Because I'm going to tell you something. You look at my personality, and you're going to find fault. But look at my personality and as a whole. What do you see?
Love.
How do you know that?
Feel it.
And you invest in others to build a little benefit yourself.
Go a step deeper. What about everybody in
It
here?
carries around to everybody.
Take me out of the picture then. What about the people of this church?
They do the same thing.
The same thing. Okay, go a step deeper. You look down at the bottom. Is this ministry benefiting itself? Seriously, this is the litmus test. And I know this isn't preaching, but it is preaching, because look at the litmus test.
If it is, I'm not seeing it.
Our offering, well, we had a good offering today. It was $172, $872. Last week it was $185. How much is our missions going out every month? I know you might not know right off the top of your head.
$700.
You're spending out as much as you're taking in. So is this ministry benefiting? Are we buying new pews? And
Financially, no.
financially, no. So what? And that's. I know this may sound crazy what I'm talking about, but if the church don't get this right, we can be misled in the supporting the wolf.
Yeah.
We can be misled by a personality, and I've seen thousands of churches misled by the wrong personality. You get a pastor in here, I'm out of the picture. The next pastor that pastors this church, he comes in and he preaches, and you like the sermon. I've heard some devils preach wonderful sermons. You realize the devil can give just a rip-roaring sermon every bit as effective on the outward appearance as the Holy Spirit can?
The devil knows every word in the Bible.
The devil knows every word in the Bible, front and back. I've heard some wicked men give wonderful messages. But I've also seen wicked men get behind the pulpit of churches and use that office for self-gain and self-glory.
That's right.
And they stomp on the hearts of the individuals that's sitting under. And what's left is a remnant of what was. I've seen pastors come into churches with 200 or 300 people, and in a few months they got 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
And I've seen pastors come in with 3 or 4 people, or 25 people, and in a few years, they're running 200 or 300 people, and everybody would say, man, what a great job he's doing. What a wonderful job he's doing. He took that church from 25 people to 2,500 people. But you look at the root of it, and they got nothing left. And he's done it for self-gain and self-glory. He's driving a different vehicle every year. He's living in a big old house. He's raking in a retirement out of this world. And he's done everything for self-gain and self-glory. Is that of God? No. No. You look at these TV preachers, Benny Hinn. You look at these TV preachers and some of them. They're preaching a gospel. It ain't the gospel. They're preaching, and it sounds good. It sounds effective. But look at the root of it. You uncover it.
Money.
You uncover it, and money's at the root of it.
Amen.
But let's go to the individual level. I come into church. I sit down Sunday morning, everybody shakes my hand, hugs my neck. And I become a member of Central Independent Baptist Church. You don't know me from Adam, but I become a member of this church. And I hug up to you and I talk to you. Oh man, we're glad to have you here. And then me and Chuck go out to eat. And hey Chuck, can I go out to eat with you? And we go out to eat. Hey buddy, I ain't been going there long. I just want to ask you a question. You know, Nikki back there, she just don't act right. Or Brother Wade there, you know, Brother Wade, he just don't.
You gonna make Chuck sing and he gonna knock you out.
You know what 90% of the people do? The moment somebody starts talking,
Tell me more.
the moment that word is put in their ears, it don't matter if they've known Wade or Nikki all their life. The moment that gospel starts, they say, hey, we need to go to breakfast. And the worst of it all is, I'm going to use you as pastor. Pastor, you know, I don't want to start no trouble, but I feel like we need to pray for Aaron. Well, why? Any concerned pastor is going to say, well, why? Well, you know, Aaron, I don't want to start no rumors, Pastor, but I saw Aaron going down the road, and Pastor, I think he was smoking a joint. I don't know that for sure, but I think he's smoking a joint.
That was then.
What have I done?
Even if you did know it's for sure. It's still wrong.
What's at the root?
He wants attention.
Self-gain. I don't care if he's smoking a joint or not. At that moment, I'm just trying to bring division between you and Aaron. Because if I had really seen Aaron smoking a joint, which I've never had, but if I had seen him doing that, and if I was his brother, and if I was concerned about him, I wouldn't be telling
You need
you.
to talk to him.
I'd be talking to him. And I'd be talking to him a whole lot about helping my brother. And then if I did feel compelled to go to him, then I took him out to eat and I said, brother, please tell me what's going on. I don't mean to start rumors, but I could have sworn I passed you smoking a joint driving down 123 yesterday. And Aaron going to say, I wasn't smoking a joint, that was a toothpick. I went to Joe's. Oh, brother, I apologize. And we could have had a chance to work it out. But the worst conversation ever, I think we need to pray for so-and-so. That's putting God's approval on your gospel. That's it. And I'm saying all this because he finishes the Sermon on the Mount on this subject. And it's not just people dying going to hell. It's lost people believing they're Christians. Do you realize that every one of these said, Lord, haven't we done this in your name? You realize every one of these people were surprised at the fact that they were in hell? They thought they were Christians too. Do you realize that person that's destroying the church, causing gossip, running each other down, causing division? If you asked them what was at the root, your answer would be concern. Well, Pastor, I'm not talking bad about Aaron. I'm just concerned about it. Or Chuck, I'm not trying to split the church. I'm just worried. There's a lot of people who are going to be utterly shocked when they stand before God. God says, I don't know. Every wolf don't necessarily know he's a wolf.
Amen.
And there's some good people who have been misled by good people. That if you ask them what was at the root of their situation, they would answer you love, concern. Thought I was doing right. When a 74-year-old man can go to church his entire life and assume that everything was all right, if he can go to church for 74 years and assume everything was all right, there's a problem. Amen. Christ tells us to look at the fruit. And He's not only telling us to look at your fruit, but He's also telling me to look at my fruit. Every one of us ought to examine what lies at the core of all of us. And I'm not talking about did I sin yesterday, or did I think this bad thought, or did I do this, or did I do that. I'm talking about what's deeper than that. The Bible declares that we all sin and come short of the glory of God. The Bible declares that all our righteousness are as filthy rags. But underlying fact, you reveal what's down to the root, and the root will tell whether you have eternal life or not. You can search and know that you've been redeemed.
Amen.
And Christ said not only to do it to others, but you can do it to self. Don't go to hell totally expecting to be in heaven. Remember?
Amen.
It took these people by surprise too, when the Lord said depart. This church, and I'm not saying put people at a distance. I'm saying beware at what is at the root. And before we jump into a ministry, before we give our heart to somebody, you look at the root. I can look at the root, and I'm proud to say it. I can look at the root of everybody I know that is part of this church. And when I look at the root, all I see is love and kindness and gentleness and meekness and selflessness and serving others.
Amen.
And that is wonderful.
Yep.
Amen.
Amen.
Because this church has had some wolves in it in the past. Thank God they're out of the picture. But when I look at you all and look at the root of it, I see beauty, and I see love, and I see kindness, gentleness, meekness, and I see this sermon. But when we deal with people, help us always to be careful of what God's given us, and help us to always be mindful before we put our confidence in a personality, to look at what the root of that person is.
Amen.
And make a wise decision. Bible says if we make wise decisions when the wind blows, if the rain comes, we'll be able to withstand it. But if we make foolish decisions when the wind comes and the rain blows, we'll be blown away with it. Amen. I want what God has started here to continue long after I'm gone.
Amen.
Amen. Aaron, you close us in prayer, brother?
Dear God, thank you for bringing us back here today. Thank you for the message you laid for us, Lord. Help us to apply that to ours, not judge, but to see the fruit in ourselves and in others. Please do this right today. Bring us back to the city. Amen.
Amen.
Pastor, you know what I think would be good? To let your wife sing that song and us go home.
What song's that, huh?
The one she just sang this morning?
Yeah.
I think that would be one.
Amen.
All right.
Suits me.
Bless the laws.
Oh, that's a lot better. I didn't realize how much that was going on out here.
Love gets you down, you feel more broken than whole. When the wounds go deeper than words, and you can't tell a soul. I may not know what you're going through, may not can make that high mountain move. But one thing I found, and I really want you to know. If it matters to you, it matters to